If you're a tenant, you're gonna hear from one of us again.
In the most unevil way possible, I like to think of myself as Thanos in Harlem or the Bronx. I'm inevitable.
That's where he's
the
gonna get
landlord
canceled.
or the.
How long did we get this to? Because that's where he gets canceled. What we did, 30 minutes?
Welcome to the Jener-Mendoza podcast. Harlem, Upper Manhattan, and the Bronx's new development top leasing team. Today, I'm joined with my partners, Erick and Sebastien. We want to give you a little bit of an intro into our business, about ourselves, our backgrounds, really what we're seeing on the ground every single day in these sub-markets that we do work. Throughout the next couple of episodes, we want to introduce you to some serious industry leaders that in the development world, marketing world, and just overall real estate sphere help us do what we do on a daily basis. But today, we want to give you our backstory, a little bit about us, the business, and what we're seeing out there. But gentlemen, thank you so much for making the time. I know I talk to you guys every day, but
I didn't have a choice.
I'm forcing you to sit down with me.
Was it voluntary?
Yeah,
but
So a little bit about our team. I've been doing this for about 10, 11 years now. Erick's been with me for 8 or 9. Sebastien, you've been our best friend the entire time, but it's been about 4 or 5 years you've been on the team working together with us.
Yeah.
As a whole, we represent over 120 buildings in Upper Manhattan, the Bronx, Queens, Midtown, some downtown as well. We're all over the place. We really specialize in new development. We've gone through about 10 or 12 full building lease-ups to this point. We've got 10 or so new developments on market today. And in the next couple of quarters into 2025, we're bringing 8 projects to market. So a lot going on in specific markets. So I would like to believe that we are experts in Harlem, the Heights, South Bronx, even up to Fordham these days. And even in Queens, we've done some projects in Queens as well. And then just in general, the purpose of the pod, we want to bring value, essentially to the development community, landlords that are looking for potentially insight on rents, market trends, what kind of tenants we see in those neighborhoods. Also real estate professionals like our colleagues, real estate brokers, mortgage lenders, brokers on the commercial side. And then lastly, the renter, buyer, seller, anyone that's looking to make a move in the future, which is literally everybody. I think there's something here for them. But
hopefully a little entertainment.
A little bit. I would like to think we're funny guys sometimes. But I think
stand up like Dave Chappelle,
Yeah, a little bit. But I think to jump into it, I think we should introduce ourselves, let everyone know our backgrounds, what we do. Bash, you're the newest in the group per se.
Oh, okay.
So tell us about your experience in real estate, how you got into real estate, which is an unfortunate event, but I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, I feel like this story could be the entire podcast itself. True say. Yeah, my story how I got in real estate. So me and this guy, Erick, I've actually known him since high school. So, we're in school together. We're talking like 10th, 11th grade. After high school, we actually started like some side businesses together. Just kind of hustling, trying to figure out ways to, yes, everything legal.
Okay.
Everything legal, everything above board. You know what I mean? Nothing too sketch. Social media marketing. Solar sales was interesting. Door-to-door solar sales definitely teaches you a thing about selling for sure. I'll never forget it. For me, my background, my dad actually worked in real estate back in the day, pre crazy market crash of 2008 that pretty much everybody knows about. So I actually didn't want anything to do with real estate. I guess you could say I was scarred even though I didn't actually work on it myself. But I'll never forget, this was after we had finished up, I think, solar sales. So we had left that company we were working with and just trying to figure out what the next move was going to be. Erick at that time was in college, if I'm correct, and you were looking for a spot in the city. So not to go too much into his story, but he tells me one day, we're just talking over the phone. He's like, yeah, I got my real estate license. I'm working as an agent right now. And in my head, I'm like, wow, that's the worst thing you could possibly ever do. What would possess you to do something so terrible? But he's telling me about it. He's saying, I'm working with this guy named Mike, cool dude. At that point, we hadn't met yet, but he's telling me how he's having success. And my thing is, I'm very much like, listen, if he can do it, I can do it. You know what I mean? He's my best friend.
I've heard this story before.
Yeah,
Sheesh. It hurts a little every time, that you say it like that.
But we grew up together, so it's we kind of did a bunch of stuff together. So I was like, if Erick can figure out how to do this and he's having success, maybe I should look into it. He kind of looked out for me in the sense that once he got going and he was enjoying it and it was going well, he kind of wanted to drag me into it as well. It's kind of what we do to each other. It's like we start something and it's like, hey, bro, come join me, the benefits of working with your friends, so to speak. So I'll never forget, he's like, listen, man, I was like with a client. I met them up like right in front of the building, introduced myself. An hour later, I made $1,000. And I was like, oh, bro, sign me up. I'm good. That's all I had to hear. Went and got my license online. Realestate.tv, whatever it is, .eu.
This isn't sponsored.
It's not sponsored.
Can't be saying
It's
that.
not sponsored at all. Damn, I shouldn't have said that. Mad Pub. Literally, I'll never forget. I meet Mike for the first time. We're at this office in Midtown. I come dressed in a full suit, make my way down to the city. I finally got my license, so I'm here to like meet Mike, associate my license with the brokerage, kind of get going. I'll never forget, I walk into this building and I'm going up the elevator, and it's like the most unsexy commercial building you've ever seen in your entire life. Like rinky-dink elevator going all the way up. I walk out into what's basically just a hallway, almost like a apartment building hallway. I find the door, I walk in, and literally it's funny because it's just a room and it's like 2 desks. And it's just Mike at one desk with like 2 laptops in front of him, just like typing away. And immediately I'm like, oh, this is shady as hell. I thought we walked into some like backroom deal or whatever. Met Mike. He kind of ran me through what it is that you guys were doing at that time. I'm a little bit of a different business than what we're doing now. It's kind of took off from there. Looking back, I feel like if I had that experience now at 28 years old, I wouldn't have joined. I wouldn't be in real estate right now. But being young and naive is almost a benefit sometimes. It just made sense to me what we're doing. And that's kind of the abbreviated backstory. And fast forward, my story is a little unique because I went into real estate, left real estate, came back to real estate. So, fast forward 8 or 7 or so years and to kind of where we are today. I'll never forget when he gave me that call. He was like, listen, man, I was with the client for 35 minutes, an hour, showed them the place, answered some questions. They applied, made like $1,000.
And he ruined your life.
And single-handedly. But how gullible was I though? So I also have to take credit because it's like all I heard was that and I was sold. But here we are today.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I'm gonna go ahead and actually jump ahead here. I know we wanted to do a section where we talk about our favorite drink of the week that we wanted to bring up.
He's skipping the whole story straight
I'm
to
gonna bring
alcohol.
up my story. My story sounds a little better after some bevs. So I just wanted us
for people that don't know, Erick is our in-house resident mixologist. There is not a single social gathering or outside of work gathering where there aren't some drinks flowing.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that we make this a little interesting. I found a nice bottle of this whiskey here. Any mixers? Anybody's doing mixers?
No.
I got some mixers back here too. So
I hate my life.
What I like about this bottle specifically is that it's like opaque at the bottom. So when you're, after a long day, you actually don't think that you drank that much because you get to about here. And it's okay because you keep going and it's like, all I had was this. And you sleep the next day until you turn the bottle over. Then you're like, oh, that's not good.
Oh, man.
Not good.
Oh, man.
So
and we let them pour too?
Yeah, if you want to pass these down, we're just going to do some light pours.
Oh, God.
Do some light pours real quick.
Your light pour.
You might like my story a little better after that.
So what is this? This is a whiskey?
Yeah, this is some whiskey here. We got no promos just yet, so I'm not going to go ahead and shout these guys out, but this stuff is pretty hard to find.
I think Aubrey's a fan from what I've heard.
Drake might have some hands with it. But you see, like you kind of can't. You don't know how much you're going. So look at that. We're almost there. Look at that. We might finish it. Who knows?
Just a couple light pours.
We might have to pause this and go get some more. But anyways,
cheers.
Yes, definitely.
Cheers.
Salud.
Episode 1.
Salud. It's episode 1. So my story is a little bit different where I always knew that I wanted to be successful. I always wanted to make a lot of money. I kind of didn't really understand what that all meant, but I don't think I'm special in saying that I wanted to do those things. For myself, going away to college, I don't know. I went to a college that I got a, football scholarship for. And to be honest, I didn't really care about what my major was. I just knew that I had to keep those grades. And I was always good at school. Don't get me wrong. I always was. But, I I didn't really care too much for it. I knew that.
I can actually attest to that because he was the dude in high school that like didn't do any homework and didn't pay any attention in class and still managed to graduate
just show up.
with,
Yeah,
like a wild
So-
GPA.
It's funny because I did the same thing and I didn't do too well.
So and it's funny where you go into the story of everybody wants to be successful, everybody has different paths, and it usually starts with not doing something, like you're not doing enough at that point, or you feel kind of like rock bottom-ish type of thing. Basically, I got injured, I had to transfer, or I didn't have to transfer out of that school, but that school was hell of expensive without a scholarship. So I transferred to a different school. I transferred here to CUNY, and basically I was looking for a spot, and I knew that I wanted to go ahead and be in a place that at least I would have the opportunities. And where else better can you do it in New York? Or excuse me, better than New York. And I looked at it as an opportunity of, you know what, I'm starting from ground zero. I've built a bunch of things with you before. They worked out in certain senses, but it kind of was this thing where, like, unless you keep going at it, it didn't really make a difference later.
Hard to run a marketing business when you're also a full-time student.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
we learned.
Student, athlete. I was doing a bunch, like, managing college just in general. Like, obviously at that age, you have so many different distractions and things going on. You're figuring yourself out. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I always heard the word real estate, and I always knew I wanted to get into it, but I thought you needed a lot of money to do it. And lo and behold, I'm looking for apartments for myself, and I run into this guy, and basically he actually ignored me for a while because he specifically worked with students at the time. I had
He
a
didn't
pretty
look like a student. He had the same beard.
Yeah, I had a pretty diesel beard going on, and I just
He looked just like this at like 19.
I was probably using the same exact jacket. Like, I was always dressed like this. So we met at a Starbucks near the place that he was working out of. And
this was when you were looking for your place.
Yeah, so it was kind of a thing. Well, actually, no, I'm skipping over a part here. I ended up finding a place in the dorms, and I was just like, all right, screw it. Like, I got waitlisted, but they ended up calling me, and I was like, yo, these dorms suck. So basically, long story short, I met with him, and I was like, yo, like, every broker that I met along the way was a person that was either a lot older than me. It was a person that didn't relate to me at all, didn't care about what I was looking for. They kind of just cared about their commission. And a lot of people may be watching this and they may be saying, that kind of sounds like every other broker I've met. I've always heard brokers are scammy, agents are scammy, nobody likes, and they are, you know what I mean? And I think he was the first person I met that, once we found out, like, oh snap, I'm actually younger than you. Like, it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, once we found out that, like, there's some common ground that, like, listen, I'm no stranger to hustling. I'm no stranger to getting after it. And this was the only person that I knew outside of you and like two other people that was like that, So I thought, you know what? Kind of like what you said, like if this person's doing it, I'm watching it in real time. If young people can make money and do big things, this is an avenue to do it, sure. And he kind of gave me the blueprint, get your license, do the things that you need to do. Get your training, get all that stuff, and this is how you're going to educate yourself. But this is the one opportunity in our lives that we can actually specifically work with people that are, in our same, not even only in the same vicinity, but in the same classes as us.
And I do want to give Mike some credit for, at that point, having that kind of business already mapped out and laid out that you'd already been working on. It was unique. It was something that, never really knew existed.
Well, that business, we'll jump into that. That grew out of club promoting. So
yeah.
It wasn't necessarily the most genius idea. It was just how can I make more money per head.
Yeah. But and also too, like I had done club promoting and stuff, so there was a lot of similarities, and I thought to myself, why not do this now? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna go out there right now at 19, 20 years old and go buy a building. That doesn't make any sense. It's not feasible.
Yeah.
But I'm here in this environment, and I know for sure that besides this guy, nobody's gonna outwork me at that. So that's kind of where we all started with everything, and here we are basically 9 years later, kind of developing our business in different ways, and that's kind of how we got here.
Yeah. And that's the foundation of how, like, we met, started working together, got into the business, but neither of you guys gave yourself the credit for what we've done as a team. And like, before I jump into like how I got started and whatnot and how like we started working together, brought you in, it's been about an 8-9 year run for us. This past year, the three of us, we closed on 600 transactions in 2023. I already prefaced that we've represented over a dozen new developments on market and post-market at this point. We have about 10 new developments on market. We represent over 120 buildings. So there was a lot that happened from that foundation to today. Also,
you said 600 deals, and I can almost feel each one. You
know
what I mean?
Like, 600 headaches. And we're on pace this year to break the 1,000 point in transactions in a single year. And that's due to a lot of the great relationships we have with developers, all the great buildings we're working on, bringing to market, one specific project in mind, which we can't really give too much detail about yet. It's not on market, but it's over 400 units in the South Bronx. Like, these are all a testament to the work that has been laid over the last couple of years, last 5-10 years. So I think there's a lot of layers to that story that we'll get into about what happened after getting your license.
Eventually, yeah.
But just like, as a background for me, similar to what Erick said, I came to college in the city as opposed to outside the city, tore my ACL playing basketball first year. When I stopped playing, I lost my lust for going to college in general. I got my real estate licensed, and I slowly basically dropped out after my freshman year.
He also showed me how to do that.
Yeah.
Drop out. Going, and then they keep calling you, and one day they stop calling you.
I have a course for that you can buy.
But how to ghost your university education.
But essentially, I got my license. I went to work for a big name brokerage, which was awesome because I learned the basics as far as listings, landlord relationships. I was doing deals right away, but I knew it wasn't for me. I wanted to service the clients that I was closest to, which were other students, other people in my sphere, people I met through club promoting, whatever it may be. And that's where undorm.com got formed. That was that sketchy office you walked into in Midtown at our early stages. But undorm.com serviced the student industry for about 5-6 years in New York City. It eventually got acquired by a different brokerage. We also got older, and we are no longer students, so we don't necessarily want to work with students per se.
At least not exclusively,
business model. But, through that, we worked with hundreds and hundreds of apartment leases on a yearly basis, met tons of landlords. That grew into working with a couple landlords here and there, which then snowballed into having large, like pre-war portfolios in downtown, midtown Manhattan. Eventually, we targeted the Bronx and Harlem first. Harlem was 5-6 years ago really different than it is today. Now it looks like Midtown, but back then, a lot of the framework for that luxury living was starting to get laid. It wasn't on market yet, and we entered at the right time. We met a lot of great developers that were entering the marketplace. They needed guidance. They needed young, hungry brokers that wanted to get after it. And just to shout out a few projects that we have recently done. 60 West 125th Street was a project that, coming out of COVID, we helped lease up over 140 units on 125th Street. Insane rents.
Still working on
the re-rents. Yeah. 620 West 153rd. Essentially, really the first building in Hamilton Heights to bring that luxury level of living. 238 apartments.
You can't miss it either. It sticks out.
Since that building was built, they've changed the zoning, so you can't build a 28-story building in that area. But those are a few examples. And, I like to believe that if there is a single developer that is eyeing a plot of land or looking to redevelop or do whatever in Harlem, they're hearing from me before they even break ground. I think that's what we pride ourselves on. I mean, you guys send me pictures of construction permits every day. If someone is thinking of building in our neighborhoods, we're reaching out to them and letting them know what that rent will be, who that tenant will be, and how to design their apartments way before anything has been built.
Yeah, not to incriminate myself, but I know you might relate to this. I've definitely had plenty of times where I drive by what looks like a tear down site and start snooping around trying to figure out as much information I can just to get it back to this guy to find out who's developing the land and whatnot. So
and I think
something we pride ourselves in.
I think that one you spoke on pride ourselves on. I think one of the other things that I find super enjoyable just across the board is when you have a client, especially when they're looking for something that's luxury and they're looking in those neighborhoods, you're going to run into me again. There's no ghosting us. You are going to run into me again. Yeah. And I have literally, I don't know why I have this pack rat mindset of just don't delete text messages, but literally I have stuff where people will pop up 12 months later or even a couple of years later and be like, hey, do you have something in that building again? or I go to confirm a client and it's like it's the same person that we saw a few months ago or a year ago. What's up? You know what I mean? Like it's like you're running back into that person.
Again.
If you're looking for an apartment and you're looking for an apartment of quality, you're gonna see me again. You know what I mean? If you're in that neighborhood, if you're in that market, you're still in New York, I'm still gonna see you again. And I think that's like the other part of it. It's a two-way go where it's like, you know, we're talking to landlords every day and we're doing those things for them. You're gonna hear from Mike again. Yeah. If you're a tenant, you're gonna hear from one of us again.
And in the most unevil way possible, I like to think of myself as Thanos in Harlem or the Bronx. I'm inevitable.
That's
both
where he's
the
gonna get
landlord
canceled.
or the.
How long did we get this to? Because that's where he gets canceled. What we did, 30 minutes, and we're in.
I can see clip-ups of like, look at this asshole.
Look at this guy over here.
I'm inevitable.
When we work on a building, we lease it up. We retain the buildings, we keep them, and that's because we provide a service to landlords that they appreciate. We pull through on the numbers that we promise. We get things done expeditiously. And again, from the client's perspective, I don't care how great of a building you represent. The client had a bad experience with you or the landlord or whatever it may be, they're not coming back to you. Right. So we pride ourselves on not only having that connection with our clients, but with the landlord, which presents a very unique opportunity for clients to circulate through our ecosystem every year, potentially when they're looking to rent or even to purchase.
It's a little version of like a one-stop shop where you might come to us for building A, and then we can also recommend buildings B, C, and D, depending on your neighborhood and depending on our availability and all the new projects we have coming up. So it gives us a unique advantage in that sense, which is how you get to 600 plus transactions.
Yeah, and I like to think that our business, even though like our footprint geographically at this point keeps expanding constantly, whether it's Harlem to the Heights to South Bronx up to Fordham, even out to deep sections of Queens, we're not a jack of all trades. We're very niche in what we do. I think we really focus on sub-markets. We're not looking at West Village, Soho, Midtown Manhattan. Yeah. We're looking where can landlords get the best bang for their buck buying land? Where can they achieve the proper permits and plans to build a kind of product that actually can yield them serious profits? And then from there, where can I offer a deal to a client where they're getting a top-notch apartment that they would not get anywhere else in Manhattan at a price that makes sense for them? So I think that goes all hand in hand. And while like by next year, who knows, we might be looking at projects in Yonkers or Connecticut. The model remains the same, and the value prop for developers has always been where you're going to make the most money. And regardless, even if a lot of the locations that we focus on are not like super hot or chic, clients are moving to those locations, and you can't stop it. The market is the market.
Very true. Very true.
But to jump into kind of looping back into your backstories, I think to lighten the mood, make this a little bit more enjoyable for the viewer, I'd like you guys to tell me, and I'll tell you as well, your funniest story with a client, developer, or just in general in your career that really stands out to you to this day, and when you think about it, you still feel embarrassed.
He's setting us up to get canceled for real.
An embarrassing story. Well, why don't we hear yours first? How about that? How about you set us off?
Okay, well, like you said, we don't want to get canceled, and a lot of the client stories potentially, we can't discuss.
Confidential information, all that other stuff.
Info. Needs another pour.
I would
chug this really quick.
I would jump back like 5-6 years ago. There was a landlord we were working with in Midtown over on 58th Street. Real junky old building, but of course, we work with him on other projects, so we're going to get those apartments leased up, and his bonehead super put the door lock on backwards. So the door locked from the outside. It was open on the inside. I go to preview a vacant apartment. I close the door. I don't have a key. Needless to say, it doesn't matter if I had a key or not. There's no keyhole on the inside. So I'm locked in the apartment. I'm like, great, all right, let me call somebody.
What floor were you on?
I was on the second floor, and essentially, I don't know how this is possible, but this is a dead spot in the middle of the city by Columbus Circle. I have zero service. My phone's not working. I even try the SOS to call the cops. It won't connect. I didn't know that was possible. Maybe 6 years ago, technology wasn't as advanced, but I'm stuck. So I can't call anybody. It's a 6-unit building, and I know that 2 of the units are vacant because I'm leasing them. So I have a chance that maybe one of the 4 tenants is 12 o'clock on a Friday at home. I'm banging on the windows. I'm screaming on the door. I was yelling. And this was also June, July, so I was just bullet tears coming down, ruined my suit. I didn't know what to do. I was there for probably like 90 minutes to an hour or 2 hours.
Really?
It was not fun.
Where were we? Where were we? You didn't like,
I couldn't reach you.
Oh, his phone.
Yeah, I think I remember this day too.
Oh, no.
He was dead silent and Mike is never dead silent. Like you can reach this guy at any hour. Literally. And yeah. I think I remember.
Windows in the back, they only faced into alleyways. So there was nothing there. I climbed out the window and started scaling the side of the building.
From the 2nd floor.
Got up to the 3rd floor, and then I was in apartment 2B. I forgot 3B is also vacant, so that was a waste. I went down. Luckily, someone was at one point passing up the hallway. I saw them through the peephole. I was yelling. They came. I asked them to open it from the outside, and then, of course, just click. It opens. So, one of the worst days of my real estate career, but I made it out alive.
Oh, wow. Yeah, man.
And I told the landlord about it too later, and he was like, "Oh, that's rough. I'll get it fixed."
That's rough.
Yeah.
Stuck in the apartment for 2 hours in like 90 degrees. Talking about tough, man. Tough. That might be hard to top, man. That's pretty rough.
If I gotta go with, now that you said funniest or most embarrassing story, I got a lot of secondhand embarrassment when we were touring this huge group, and I was with another one of our agents, and it was for this, I don't know, let's call it a 4 or 5 bedroom out in the East Village, and it was with a management company, and that management company did not care. They were going in to show your apartment every hour, on the hour. Some of you guys may know what I'm talking about, but every hour, I know you guys do, every hour, on the hour, as long as it's in your last 30 days of the lease. And sometimes, understandable, some people have already moved out of that huge apartment.
So you're talking about showing the apartment, just so everyone kind of understands. So these are apartments where someone might still be in a lease, but towards the end of the lease, they'll start to show the apartment to
which
new
is
people.
structured into a lot of leases,
Right.
but like this management, and even they're aggressive. A lot of when we run into that type of thing, at least we're very cordial with the tenants. Like our tenants typically like us, so it's not a big deal. We'll even arrange some hours where we can make it happen. I mean, we're all for making it work for every party and making it as seamless and as painless as possible. But this management doesn't care. No notice. They got to be in at that time. I didn't know that. I thought it was just an empty apartment overall. Basically, I'm there with like 3 moms, all of their like daughters. It's like 4 different groups and like
you were doing
some frat kids. Like it was just like this whole, I was basically doing an open house for this management company. But I had one of their leasing reps going and showing for me because they had the keys. They don't trust us with the keys. Understandably so, because I wouldn't want to have the keys for this apartment anyways. It was basically a whole townhouse. We go to the bottom floor, or we go to like up the stairs. That door's locked. Everything is all blacked out, by the way. It's a weird setup. Like every curtain is drawn. Like it's really, really weird. We go in through like the gate that goes underneath the stoop. And I remember it just, before the door even opened, I just had this weird feeling of like something doesn't seem right. And I got mom behind me. Like I said, all these moms behind me, like looking for their daughters that are going to NYU or FIT this year or whatever. And yeah, I remember being there with my full-on suit, already sweating because it's also 90 degrees. It's summertime, everybody's looking for an apartment. And I remember going in and there was just a lot of things that you did not want a suburban mom to see for their daughters to come into. Yeah, and just this, there was, even if you closed your eyes, you were going to get that smell. And there was a lot of different smells, and it wasn't the street. And it was, I'd approximate maybe like 20 to 25 people behind me and the leasing agent in front of me, or the management rep in front of me. And yeah, it didn't look too pretty when we walked in, and there's just people laid out as if it was like a crime scene because they're just like passed out from the day before. Lots of clothes on the floor, lots of stuff on the tables. We're not going to get into all of that, but
a lot of paraphernalia.
Yeah, it smelled really bad, but to this day, I don't know what smell it was because there were so many different things going on, and the lights were just all dark. And yeah, I'm just here with You know, like I said, 3 moms in a frat group and just like a bunch of basically like college students just looking at it, what college is in New York, I guess, you
How'd
know?
you close the deal?
One of the groups took it, yeah. The mom that I thought was like gonna be the one that says like, no, 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 you're going to school back home where we're from, back in
Away
I
from
don't
the
know,
shenanigans.
yeah, that was the group that was like, this is awesome, this is a great, and I don't know, maybe she had some like
That's the definition.
memories of like, you know, what college was like for her. I don't know, but that was basically what she was just like, yeah, no, I'm doing the deposit now. Like, don't let the other groups. She like pulled me aside. You're not giving this apartment to anyone else. And I was like, thank you. Like, I was like, so like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like, I thank you for your wanting to do this for your daughters. This is really weird, but after what you just saw, you want to, I don't know. It was like a weird time, but I would say like I just had so much pent up, like, you know, like when you go in and you show an apartment that's not necessarily the prettiest, you got to go ahead and spice it up a little bit. You know, you're giving like, oh yeah, you know, this will get fixed and
Look
that
at this,
whatever.
look at all the light that we're getting. You know?
There was no light. It was basically a dungeon, and it was like the bottom 3 floors of a townhouse, and somehow it was still super dark. And yeah, it was just not the prettiest sight.
Sounds like you walked into what was a rager, but the people hadn't left or cleaned up.
Yeah,
just
I feel
yet.
like I walked in when it just ended. Like,
Ooh.
I don't know. I've never actually seen Project X, or is that the name of the
Yeah,
movie?
yeah.
But that's what I would imagine would have happened. I don't know. It was really, and there was just people and honestly, like we were walking into bedrooms, and like I said, this management was very aggressive. Like, we are showing your apartment, and they mean that. They mean every single room we're gonna show. They were just barging indoors with keys, like, hey, wake up! Like, there's people looking, and yeah, people were waking up and screaming because they thought like we were the cops. Like, they were just. People running around everywhere, zipping by with just a towel on. It was a lot.
You in
yeah.
your full suit, right? Looking
and I
like a
was
detective.
sweating and looking like, I don't know, but yeah, I didn't think that after mom saw, you know, people running around in towels that she would want her daughters to live there, but it worked out. So yes, I did close it to go ahead and give you the backstory.
Wow. You know, when we tell clients to have an open mind, this is what we mean. You know what I mean? You might walk into a space and see some stuff, but listen, look at the crown molding, you know? Man, my story's a lot less exciting. I feel like I haven't had as many crazy experiences that I can actually share, I should say. But
what about like one on yourself? Like, do you have one that isn't one that necessarily is with a client? You have something like that?
well, you know what? I think mine might make sense with the times. So this was actually on 124th Street. So I meet this client via FaceTime. You know, this is, what was this, 2 years ago when that building was just opening up? So like a year and a half ago. So I'm speaking with this client. They're coming in from out of state, coming in from Miami. And I'm just like, cool, you know, we see that often, people coming in from all over. So I do the FaceTime showing, show them the apartment. Good dude, super cool. He's asked me a bunch of questions, run-of-the-mill stuff. I'm thinking, great, this is going to be easy deal. We'll lock it right up. Couple hours go by, he texts me back, hey man, I love the place, let's get an application going, I want to get started. So send the application over to him, and then starts sending me over, like, you know, the documentation in New York City. When you're applying for a place, they always ask for, you know, employment letter, recent pay stubs, ID, things like that. So I'm looking at all this documentation, and in my head I'm like, what a star tenant. Like, this dude's well qualified, makes a bunch of money, you know what I mean, like everything looks super clean, really good. And I'm like, perfect, we'll be good to go. For that building, what they also require, though, is, let's say, you know, if you're employed somewhere, they ask for an employment letter, company letterhead, phone number, so we can contact, you know, your employer just to make sure everything checks out. So in my head, I'm like, you know, what's with all the red tape? You know what I mean? Like, this guy's clearly qualified, we're good to go. Start doing the investigations, reviewing the application. I call the number that's supposed to lead to his employer. And I call the number, I get basically just rings out, no one answers. So I'm like, you know, might be busy, you know what I mean? Give it a little bit more time, call back again, and it's just the dial tone, like that dead sound it makes, like that just dead dial tone. And I'm like, you know, a little weird. So it is what it is, though. So I email the company, and I'm just like, hey, just want to verify XYZ here, works here. They're applying for a place. I'm the broker, yada, yada, yada. And I get no response. So I hit Buddy back up, and I'm just like, hey man, just having a hard time verifying your, you know, employment. Can you just, you know, help me out here? You have a different number. And he's like, yeah, no problem. Supplies me with a different number. I get on the phone, try that second number again, same thing, it's not working. At this point, I go to Mike, and I'm like, yo, bro, I can't get in contact with like anywhere where this guy works at, and we have to verify his employment. I can't just send the application to management, no matter how good it looks. we start doing research and I start looking up the company to find out the company doesn't exist.
Oh, I remember this story now. Yeah.
It links to a PO box in Miami, and I'm just like, which is still, I'm still giving it the benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? Because it's Miami. You know what I mean? Like, I could see them not having a virtual business. It's 2023. You know what I mean? Things happen. Long story short, come to find out, I can't pinpoint this company. So then I'm looking at all the documentation, and I realize there's mistakes on the bank statement. Like, I'm talking about like misspellings. And I'm like, if I know one thing, I know Chase is not going to start misspelling things on the bank statement. So now I'm like, all right, what's going on here? And because of this guy's experience with like Microsoft Paint from back in the day and whatnot, we come to find out like everything is forged. Fake bank statements, fake ID, fake employment letter, fake pay stubs. And at that point, I was more impressed than anything because I was like, this dude has a future in web design. Because
not in spelling.
Not in spelling bees, yeah.
So it was more of a crazy story than maybe a funny story. But come to find out, this dude's just an elite scammer. Or, thought he was an elite scammer.
And that's not an individual story. We'll touch on this later too, but professional tenants in New York City, that's a full-time job. There are a lot of scammers on a yearly basis that we come across. We have a lot of landlords that have rent collections because of clients that either have fake backgrounds, fake their credit scores, steal people's identities, or potentially go into the whole rental process with real documentation, but they have no intention of ever paying rent.
Yeah.
And that's another topic. That's the judicial system in New York. It's way too tenant favoring. New York, New Jersey, you can screw over your landlord and your landlord has zero rights. But that was a recent story, and I remember being highly disappointed because that was a big apartment.
It was a big. I thought, wow, this apartment is huge. So it's like, who's gonna rent such a big spot in a new building? Thought we had it all hammered out. Yeah, I think that's probably the funniest story. It wasn't funny at the time. It was stressful at the time. But yeah. And then since then, I feel like we've come across that a few more times. But I think that's just in the year 2024, being a scammer is probably harder than ever, but easier than ever with all the tools at your disposal. But yeah, I say that's my my funny story, so to speak.
Well, so moving on a little bit more granular as far as I've said it a million times, and if anybody knows us, they think of Harlem right away, but other locations uptown as well. We're really like that uptown team. Why, from your perspectives, why do we work in the markets we do? Let's take Harlem as an example. Harlem is definitely our biggest market today. I'd say at least 60 buildings of our portfolio are located within that 110 to about 145th Street corridor, and that's of all sizes. We got single families all the way up to 300 unit buildings. Eric, why Harlem?
Yeah, so when I finally got out of the dorms and different apartment situations and etc., I ended up moving to Harlem, and I remember being in my apartment and thinking to myself, wow, my broker buzzed me in, didn't meet me, didn't have a lot of communication throughout the entire process, didn't really know. And at the time, I'm already not big shot in, already in real estate, but I'm already a couple of years deep. I know what is expected, from these landlords. And I'm thinking to myself, that's so weird that brokers up here, and every time I was asking to meet, it's oh, I can't meet you uptown. Oh, I can't get there. Oh, I'm busy downtown in a meeting or whatever the case may be. And it's I get it, things come up, but so consistently that I never heard your voice. It's kind of weird. And I thought to myself, what is the market up here? And I I'm originally from the Bronx, and I lived in Harlem for a little bit when I was younger, running around on 125th Street way earlier than I probably should have been.
Like the early 2000s,
right? Just going, no, earlier than that, it just going and thinking to myself, why is it that if you go to a building in Midtown, where we were working at the time, why is it that no, everything's super on the ball, and then when you're up there, it's so lax, yeah, sure, if you want to show yourself, it kind of was a forgotten market in that sense. And at the time, there wasn't all these sky rises you see on 125th, 126th, on 124th, or even in the 110s. And Upper West Side was the furthest people were ever considering for an apartment that was of quality. And I thought to myself, I'm like, why is it that we don't try to work this market up here? Like at the time, there's just brokers that don't even show their own buildings. And it's like, do the owners know this? And it really stuck out to me like, wow, they are lacking the service that we literally provide. You know, like there's literally a need for that. And again, back to my story of how I even started, I'm not gonna go ahead and create a building here or make something from paper mache, but I can go ahead and I can service it better than anybody else can, and I know our team can. So you know, we started looking into things. We started calling up owners like, listen, do you need help in your buildings? And you know, a lot of them were like, I'm sorry, I didn't even think that that was even an option up here because I already have a broker that I've been working with for 10, 20, 15 years or whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, they do all my buildings downtown. And you know, yeah, they do a good enough job up there. And I'm like, how many, and even you would say like, how many vacancies do you have though? Like your half the building is vacant because you're not actually showing the apartments. You're not actually servicing the clients. Nobody's even giving you a market report of what you should be getting for your rents and how the traffic is and none of that stuff. And then when we figured that out, that there's a void in what's actually being displayed up there, and it came back, it reminded me of the story of like, yo, when I was looking for an apartment, again, it was all these really, really old brokers that didn't care about anything besides their commission. They didn't care who I was. They didn't care about, they just wanted to go ahead and put pen to paper and get their check and run. They didn't care about anything else. And I'm thinking about it and I'm like, you know what? Why don't we do this uptown? Yeah. And that's kind of where it all started. It starts with one building and of course it multiplies into a couple and things like that. And now we are where we, you know, that's where we focus, you know, because
reputation spreads.
Exactly. And we still see it to this day. There's still owners that we call and they're like, oh, but I got a broker that I've been working with for 5-10 years. And it's like, listen, I understand that. And I'm not here to make that blood. I'm not here to tell you how to run your business or how to run your building. I'm not here to do any of that. But at the end of the day, I am going to go ahead and make sure that you understand that if you don't get the rents that you want, I'm servicing the building across the streets. You're going to run into me. You know what I mean? You're going to run into us. I'm servicing the building across the street. They are taking your tenants. And it's not even about the rents. It's more about the sense that you don't even have a broker in the building to tell you what's going on in the building. You know what I mean? Like, why do you think that those showings are not going well? Oh, maybe because the broker is busy and he's doing my other projects and stuff. Understood. But at the same time, you don't have anybody telling you that there's been stuff in the lobby looking crazy for the past week and a half, and you got tenants showing up doing that, and you got me literally driving down the street like, damn, that's a nice building, but what is going on out front? You know what I mean? What is going on in the street? What's going on in that lobby? That looks crazy. Why doesn't that building pick it up? You know what I mean? And it's because they just don't know. And we can't, we're all humans. We can't have eyes every single place. Yeah. And I think that's where we come in.
Because being a landlord, it's a harder job than
yeah, you know, and you're busy. And that's the part that the broker comes in and helps you in all of those different ways. And we still work as a team. Ownership, staff, broker, tenant, everybody's got to be on the same page. If one of those things are lacking, everybody's having a hard time. Yeah. And that's, I think, where we really plugged ourselves in. And we became, you know, what we always wanted to do was a company of service. It wasn't of something that like, oh, we're here to get our check and whatever. Of course, we're all in it for money. You know what I mean? Even a client's in it for money in the sense that they want to get the best deal possible. That's understood. But at the end of the day, the deal doesn't always just come down to the money of it. It becomes if the puzzle always fits the right way. Is staff responsible? Is the ownership receptive to anything that needs to be changed? Is it including their broker, including if it's us, if we're dropping the ball, sure, let us go. Definitely. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. You don't ever let us go because you know that we're here for it. You know what I mean? Like we're about it. We're here 6-7 days a week. You know what I mean? There's not many brokerages that do that, even in Midtown. You know what I mean? So in New York City, period. And, you know, I think when it comes down to it comes down to the that's the X factor, that we work harder than everybody else, in my opinion. Anybody would like to tell me otherwise, sure. I mean, you know, why aren't you representing these buildings? And I don't mean that as like a hot take, but I really mean that in the sense. I don't mean that as like a hot take. I don't mean that as a hot take. I mean that as
put a name on that bullet, man. Come on.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like if you know, if you want to really, you know, break it down, it comes down to the relationships, right? Like nobody's gonna go ahead and state that they don't remember who we are if you've already worked with us. Yeah. And most of our business now is honestly referrals. It's really just the owner calling us now saying, hey, listen, you worked on my buddy's building, a couple streets down from me. I'm having trouble. Can you help me out? And that's what we're getting a lot of these days. And that's just proof that it is the X factor. So that's really why we work these markets.
And to jump back in on Harlem, we did that probably 2018, 2019, where we started working on a lot of like pre-war walk-up stuff in Harlem. COVID, I think, was like our springboard that like our business took off because
mass exodus from the city.
A lot of brokers were not showing, clients were not moving, they were difficult to work with, but more so landlords had vacancies through the roof. We had buildings fully vacant. We had a lot of landlords very, very scared today for other reasons, but at that point they were scared because their rent rolls completely were decimated. And I remember it was like May of 2020. I don't think it was legal yet to be back in the office. I was in the office just on a Saturday morning banging out all my pitch emails, and I pitched one developer who was the first developer to put a big building on that 125th Street corridor. And I said, hey, I saw you launched your building January 2020. I'm so sorry. But your broker has iPhone pics for a 140 unit building posted on StreetEasy. You have like 100 days on market for each unit. Understandable in today's market, nobody's moving, but what are you getting out of it? And I send like a couple hundred pitches every single week, and I hear back from a few here and there. This was one that thankfully Sunday morning that got back to me. Monday we were touring the building. By midweek we were taking over that project and we did a full lease up. We still represent the building today, even though it's a different owner that bought it from that owner. But we worked on another new development with that same original developer this year. So again, like doing all the little things, but again, I think it's an underserviced market. It's a market that a lot of brokers, management companies, and even the clients, like they don't know about it. So, and again, that goes also towards my next point is like, how did the Bronx come up? How did Fordham come up? How did Queens come up? It's just every year us growing our bubble and seeing that, hey, even though your building that is technically in Washington Heights, it falls 3 blocks out of the central Harlem radius and you want to get central Harlem rents, well, I represent everything in central Harlem. Why can't I do the same for your building, bring that same high-level marketing, that tenacious approach with our leasing team, and then at the same time also use clients that don't like those other buildings to lease up your building. And again, like that whole like full market coverage and like, having our name on every property, really controlling the client pool that works and looks in those neighborhoods plays to our advantage as far as consistently picking up more and more projects, even in other neighborhoods that want to copy the same model that we do in those existing markets today.
Yeah. And I mean, what from the tenant perspective, for me, it's a lot of opportunity, right? So sort of what you were saying earlier about, when you were renting your spot in Harlem, the amount of service you were receiving, what I find is, New York City, and we saw this a lot with Brooklyn where, Manhattan is so expensive. Rent prices here are astronomical. Everybody knows it. It's no secret. And so for a lot of folks who are either moving to New York City or they already live in New York City, maybe their lease is up, maybe their rent's getting increased, how can I find another spot that's more affordable, but not necessarily sacrifice, some of the necessities, whether I want something that's an elevator building or I'm looking for a building that has laundry or, which might sound crazy to you if you're not in New York, but there are a lot of buildings where there is no laundry, not even in your unit, the building in general. So, you have folks that are basically looking for a better deal or something better than where they're at currently. And these markets are underserved, but at the same time also getting popular. Because if I live in West Chelsea, right, and I'm renting a 1-bedroom apartment for $5,000, how high can I go? You know what I mean? Like at some point when I get my renewal offer and it's now $5,500, it's going to be the last straw on the camel's back, so to speak. So what a lot of those folks will do is they widen their horizons. Okay, what does it look like in other neighborhoods, different areas? And I think particularly with Harlem, and we're seeing this now in the South Bronx as well too, people are realizing that if I live in West Chelsea and I work in Midtown, I can move to South Harlem and still be about a 30-minute commute to the office, that's
definitely a market trend. I think it started in COVID because I think pre-COVID we were very much someone comes in with a neighborhood they want to be in and they do not budge on that. Maybe you take that West Village client and you take them to the East Village, but you don't take them to Midtown. I think what COVID did is COVID created a overall atmosphere for the client that where I live relative to where I work or I live and I do stuff is no longer important, because they realized, they went back home or they moved from the city into Jersey or Queens or wherever they moved to. They realized at that point that I don't have to live walking distance to my office. So I think generally speaking,
remote work too.
Yeah, remote work, and it's still, even today, if it's not remote, what is
hybrid.
It? Hybrid BS. I would hate to work at home, even though I can't work at home in this job. But essentially, I think that's the number one driving market trend for consumers in the markets we work, is that they probably don't work in the South Bronx if they're paying a $4,000 rent. But I think COVID gave us the ability to be very fluid on the neighborhoods that clients looked at. Yeah. So I think, first market trend when I talk about Uptown is that clients care about the building, they care about their apartment, and then the location is totally secondary. It's price, building, apartment, that's what matters. Location will make that work. I mean, what other trends are you guys seeing? Maybe not even on the client side, but client side and also landlord, builder, developer side.
I would definitely say that people are looking more for the best deal. They're looking for the best bang for their buck. So when I say that, I mean people will go ahead and spend $40 at their gym that they have or whatever, but then they'll look at a building that'll have a $100 amenity fee and be like, but the gym is great. They're looking for everything to be in-house. I think that right now, if you are building a building and you are not thinking about what the client wants, if you are still building it very cookie cutter, if you're not looking for things that people can actually fit a desk inside of one of the rooms as well, if you're not thinking about, going from just a regular 2-bedroom to just even looking for a 1-bedroom home office, layout, washer, dryer, and unit, gyms in your building, dog runs, all of these different things. If you are not thinking of that already, then you are absolutely falling behind. Because at the end of the day, that client that's looking for the best bang for their buck, they will still pay more for what they're looking for. That $5,000 1-bedroom client. Yeah. They're looking in West Chelsea and they're looking at, okay, location is amazing, but they're paying for location. Yeah. And they might actually still be in a walk-up, as opposed to if you go to West Harlem or even just a little bit more uptown.
Hamilton Heights.
You're getting a building that has everything in-house. You're looking for these things for these clients that are saying, I don't know exactly what I want. I'm looking for space and I'm looking for a nice building. What does that really mean to you? And I've said this to every single person, that you could have the perfect apartment, you could have the perfect price, you could have the perfect location. It could even be in the perfect building. But if you cannot see yourself living there for what your situation is today, for the next 12 months, 16 months, whatever it is that you're signing for, then it doesn't make any sense. You have to go ahead and make sure that you can thrive in that apartment. That's what humans want. Humans want to progress in life. Yeah. And if you go into an apartment that you feel is a downgrade, you're not going to want that. So if you're not building buildings as a developer to go ahead and upgrade, that's you're falling behind, really. Yeah. You got, or at least the prices got to be really good, better than your competitor. That's really the only way to go ahead and advance in this market. So that's what we're seeing, or at least I'm seeing a lot in terms of trends. Buildings are starting to get a little bit more creative, getting away from the 2-bedroom model because they're going ahead and realizing, well, it's a couple with a dog that needs a home office. Simple. They're looking at washer and dryer, mandatory. They're looking at least some sort of edge, whether it be their amenities or the size of their apartments or the price, that goes ahead and gets them ahead. But all in all, this is all brand new. This is since COVID's, kind of ended, as we all call it. Or COVID really started when people started working from home. That wasn't a thing before. So overall, if you're a developer that's not looking at these things, or you're not privy to what people are actually wanting, then, even if it's not us, you got to get with a broker that's in those markets where you have that land, or where you're even thinking about purchasing. And this is not a plug to ourselves in that sense. Of course, you should use us if you're thinking about it. But at the end of the day, get with a broker that understands that neighborhood and what people are even looking for in that neighborhood. And it may not be just that neighborhood, that one small section of a couple zip codes. You got to look at what's surrounding, because people are actually saying, you know what? I don't want to do Manhattan anymore. I want to do Harlem. or I want to go ahead and I want to go to the South Bronx. Or shoot, I might even take the commute. I'm only going to the office 2 days a week. Let me go up to Riverdale. Let me go up to the Bronx. Let me go up to Yonkers. Let me go up even further. Let me look at Connecticut. Well, what is your building doing to go ahead and retain that client to be even in the vicinity? You know what I mean? So you have to, and I think that's even going into why we even got a lot of buildings now, coming in the next couple quarters, or even, 8 quarters from now in the Bronx and even in far Queens. Because at the end of the day, yeah, we understand the market. We know what people are looking for. And if I know that if I'm going to the office 2 days a week, so I'm going to be spending most of my time at home, 3 days a week of working from home, and all I got to sit through is 2, or actually I should say 4, because you're doing round trip, 2 40-minute commutes to the office. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're calling it maybe even 30. Mm-hmm. So if you're going up to Harlem on one of the express trains, then yeah, you got to go ahead and have the building that people actually want to spend time in. That's the only thing that's going to make sense.
You attract bees with honey, right? So it's like,
I like that. I should have said that. I should have said that to end off.
No, but like, from a developer standpoint, that's what you have to do. If I had a dime, a dollar, I'll call it a dollar. If I had a dollar for every time I meet a client and they're like, I live in Williamsburg, I live in West Chelsea, I live in the West Village, I live in the Upper West Side, I live in the Upper East Side, and looking now in Harlem and Hamilton Heights and Central Harlem because, we're starting a family, or, I need more room, or I have a family member who's moving in with me. So I want to take that same money I'm paying now and I want to stretch it, get more for my dollar. As a developer, you have to be able to relate to that and also give them a product that's going to deliver. And the great things about Harlem, the Bronx, you're able to build at a number that's going to make sense to still be able to offer those things. You know what I mean? And now you're attracting those bees with the honey, and it becomes a nice, little stinger waffle, so to speak.
That's if you can build.
And
that's if you could build, yeah.
So 3...
Little pour break,
I would say, yeah, please pour up.
Please pour up. Anybody want any mixers or anything?
No, man.
Sir,
okay.
No, sir.
All right, so I'll leave those back there.
I would frankly say, like, those are all trends that are positive, because it sounds like people are building for what people want to use. It seems like the landlords are meeting the needs of the consumer. Now, the problem presently is that the government and also the consumer is not meeting the needs of the landlord. And unfortunately, landlords, that's their job.
It's a light pour, man. Come on, good. You hear what he's cooking up over there? We gotta.
This is why we don't let him pour drinks.
Hot take,
right here.
That's why he's the resident mixologist.
We go
next week. We're making some Henny sidecars, guys.
Going out with Eric is an occupational hazard. That's all I gotta say.
But frankly, the issue today is that the bottom line for landlords is getting thinner and thinner, and in some cases, there's no money to be made. And yes, everyone's going to jump out and say landlords
raging
are
capitalists,
evil, bad people. What about affordable housing? But I don't know anybody that goes to work or does anything unless they're fairly compensated. And same goes for landlords. If they're not making money, they're not going to build. Issues that really are facing our industry today is, one, 421A has been repealed, so there's no longer any tax abatements for building rental buildings. That's already affecting our general pipeline today for buildings that are in the works now and haven't broken ground. Well, they're not going to meet that deadline. So essentially, no buildings are going to be built on the rental side at this point until the government changes that. Now, that's a huge topic we could discuss, but frankly, until that changes, the real estate market is going to further suffer. Topic 2 is lack of supply, which seems like redundant that they repealed 421A, but we don't have enough apartments to house people of all income levels today. And there's another caveat to that, which is rent stabilization, that, we can't increase the rent on apartments that are super, super low legal rents, but are not inhabitable today, because we can't put the money into them to get them up to living conditions for people to rent, because the legal rents are so low that we'll never recoup those funds from the landlord perspective.
We've literally had situations, and you always want to be somewhat sensitive to the topic, because it's like, from the outside perspective, easy to say from your high horse, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If from the outside perspective, you guys make all this money, you know what I mean? Why are you continuing to be greedy with housing, which is a basic human need? But going back to your point of, nobody does their work for free. Everyone's here to make a profit, including the developer, the landlord. So we've literally run into situations where you'll have a 2-bedroom apartment in New York City, and the rent for it will be $815. But that new apartment also needs a brand new kitchen. It needs a brand new bathroom. All the flooring has to be replaced. The plumbing needs to be replaced. And
just to bring it up to code to be
livable.
inhabitable.
And it's not free
like,
to
get
get the
approved.
permits to do the work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
I think what the
it's a tough two-sided
We got
sword.
lead paint, we got asbestos. We have all these things that were laws enacted after the fact that need to be remedied today for, tenant safety, but the money's not there.
and
And for
because
lack of better terms, shit's not cheap. To go ahead and fix it.
so the thing I think people might not think about is the cost of construction and renovations in New York City are way more than you would believe. You could be looking at a 2-bedroom apartment, and to get it to livable standard might cost you $40,000 to $50,000 in construction costs, because thanks to COVID and general inflation, it's not just on the consumer end, it's also on the business end as well too. Materials are expensive, labor is expensive. If you want to use, I would say, labor that's above board, so to speak. I
mean, even just bringing in a truck from another state that's not New York to get the sidewalk permit to make sure that they don't get a ticket, just to go ahead and park it outside, and then have even just a forklift to bring it onto a residential street, to just bring it inside of a residential street in New York City. I'm not talking about Midtown where you're going to get a ticket, you're going to get booted, you're going to get lifted out of there. I'm talking about on a random street, even if you're just all the way uptown where there's no traffic cops, just to get that permit on a one-way street is super expensive.
Yeah.
Just to go ahead and get your materials inside the building before you ever built anything.
Yeah. So you start to do the math, and it's one of those things where the numbers just aren't making sense anymore. And now I am something I've heard before in the past that, kind of not necessarily playing devil's advocate, but so to speak, you hear a lot of people say, well, that's just the cost of doing business, and if you can't afford it, you shouldn't be in business, which is like, sounds great to say on the surface, but these aren't isolated incidents, right? An isolated incident where maybe a landlord planned poorly, right? They didn't make the right upgrades over time. And now they're in a situation where it's like, hey man, you messed up because it didn't have to be this expensive if you were upkeeping the unit. Fair. But when you're seeing the same problem widespread, and we're talking thousands upon thousands of apartments, it then becomes a systematic issue more than just one-offs. And so you dig down and it's like, what's the deeper problem? And at the end of the day, if the numbers aren't making sense across the board, then we have a bigger issue. And it's legislation, understanding the landlord perspective, understanding the tenant's perspective, and kind of meeting in the middle. Because at the end of the day, nobody wins in the situation that we're in, because for what it's worth, that landlord is not making money on that unit, right? They can't afford to get it to where it needs to be. And now it's exacerbating a larger problem. But it's like both sides almost aren't communicating to understand what the obstacles are and how to fix them. It's a lot of finger pointing, it's a lot of blaming, it's a lot of shaming, which, unfortunately is kind of the environment we're in today, on a lot of different topics.
And honestly, like, the saving grace, if we want to even call it that, was something as small as a law like 421A. And, when you're looking at something like that, that's literally from the top down, made from, and maybe I'll get canceled for this, but if it's just coming from Albany, who probably those people have never even been to New York City, not at least to the buildings that they're affecting, it kind of leads to the question of, like, is this problem systematic? Is it something that is not?
It's very systematic.
You know what I mean? Is it something
Albany's
that
got to get their shit together?
is it something that they're going ahead and doing on purpose?
It wasn't me.
Is there something that they're doing on purpose? You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
that-
they're hurting
100%,
everybody and
100%.
it's trickling down.
Politics is it's a power game. Politics is not about helping the people. From 421A being repealed to the 2019 rent laws, those are two topics that I really want to get in depth with professionals in those fields, not only from the developer's perspective, but also, from the attorney perspective far as...
we won't get too far into it,
Yeah.
because we're brokers. So we'll bring in
We
people
said
who
we did
know
not
what they're
graduate
talking
college.
about.
We don't have our law degrees yet,
but
but we know
I never
damn well
went.
enough about this topic.
I never even went.
But I'll tell you what we do work with on a daily basis, which was going to be my last point, which is a very, very sticky topic, which I will preface firstly by saying that, firstly, our brokerage, our team, we do work with all lawful sources of
He's
income.
on the ledge.
And,
He's on the ledge.
And we do represent several properties that price point specifically do, pertain to clients that have entities, like programs that will cover the full rents. And we very actively in those markets do rent to clients using programs from the government. Now, it's great when the process works. You are helping someone find, whether it's their first home or a livable home. You are doing a great deed, and you are handsomely paid for doing so. But that is probably the biggest broken issue in New York today, is the voucher system, how it's set up, how it's not built in any way to actually get people housing in an effective and timely manner. It's all politics, and it all is strictly about catching bad actors, whether it is landlords, brokers, management companies, or whoever in the real estate sphere, and getting them in trouble, enrolling them in programs that cost money, doing fines, slapping them with like brokerage suspensions. This is by
Where
no
does that
means
money go?
The name of the game
goes to the
becomes
government.
cash collection versus actually
so
fixing
Albany
the issue.
does not care one bit about actually getting people housing or solving the housing crisis. It's about making money. And that leads me back to my last point, which is everybody needs to make money. Those are topics that I really want to delve into with professionals in those fields, because we're just real estate agents. We're not qualified. But that's the dark side of what we're facing today. I think really just to finish it up, what are some projects or things you're seeing in the market or just generally in your career today that you're looking forward to in summer 2024? Because I know it's cold outside, it's only March, but it's going to be summer and it's going to be over before you even know it.
That's true. Yeah. I'm honestly excited to explore these new neighborhoods that we're going into. You know what I mean? Personally for myself, when we started working more in Harlem, new development buildings, it was nice to be able to explore these neighborhoods, learn about the history, help educate clients on, the neighborhoods they're moving into, and really watch people almost discover different parts of New York. You know what I mean? Everybody kind of thinks of New York and they just think of Manhattan, and it's kind of the gist of it. Brooklyn has gotten a lot of shine, you know what I mean? Shout out to the hipsters and all that other good stuff.
So you're looking forward to the cultural aspect.
Yeah, I am. Because,
okay.
You know what I mean? It's like...
Delve into the background a little bit. Like, you were not born in New York, so you don't really know that.
No. So I was born in Haiti. You know what I mean? So learning about United States culture for me was a big thing. But, strictly for New York, I was someone who grew up an hour and a half away from the city. And while I knew about New York and I spent plenty of time here, it was just in Manhattan. To me, Brooklyn and Harlem didn't really mean much. So when I was finally able to move to the city myself and kind of explore these neighborhoods and realize there's more to New York than Times Square, there's more to New York than Chelsea, there's more to New York than just the Upper East Side, you kind of...
Real New Yorkers never even been to the Statue of Liberty. We don't want to go through Times Square. We avoid it at all costs. If your train's not going through, you ain't.
All right, so
go there like 2 times maybe a year.
Culturally, since you've been so active in Harlem, shout out one place that working in Harlem, has put you onto.
One place. Oh man, there's
I got
there's
something that comes to mind for me, for him.
There's a zillion spots. Wait, you guys thinking about the same spot I'm thinking?
What are you thinking?
L and then A?
Nah, it's spelled
look at you guys. Y'all are terrible. Y'all are terrible. How you gonna do that to me? That's terrible. That's terrible.
Wait,
No. The
All
one
right,
place.
I'll let you. Go.
I was saying L with you, but
shots. You see, y'all not sly.
I'm not even trying to get you in trouble.
You're not
I'm
the
just
least
saying,
slide.
L with
You stirring the pot.
They got good pizza. I will say that.
Stirring the pot.
Never had it, but I heard it's good.
So I'm gonna two spots. Shout out Lucille's Cafe.
Okay, so he said mine.
Lucille's
Cafe.
What do you think?
What
do you think? I know where your mind was going to for sure.
What are you thinking of?
Lucille's Cafe is on 148th and 149th and McCombs. Or 149th and Frederick Douglass. You'll find it. You'll see it. You can't miss it. Super dope cafe.
Right where it meets.
I discovered them like 3 years ago on accident. I was in between showings. I was dying. I needed coffee. So I, stumble into what I think is a coffee shop at Lucille's. And while I'm in there getting my coffee, I'm like, you guys have alcohol? I see bottles.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
They make drinks. They got pizza. They got good food.
And afternoon we start serving alcohol. You know what I mean? They have a pizza shop. There's a pizza shop 2 doors down called Pizza by Lucille's. Top 5 in New York City. Stamp it. Top 5, Lucille's, 149th, Frederick Douglass. The pizza, it's beautiful. Got a beautiful crust on it. And overall, great food, great vibe. And another spot that's held me down, Foxy's over in Harlem as well too. What's Foxy's? 117th?
Oh,
One no, it's one. I think it's like 118th and Frederick Douglass.
are you talking about Foxes?
Foxes,
something like that,
the bar.
Yeah. Well, every time I've been there with you, I've been like
Slightly
pretty drunk
inebriated.
going there and very drunk leaving there.
So I've never
But it's
calibrated
really
the
good
exact
staff
cross
there.
streets.
It's really amazing staff there. So yeah.
Amazing staff at Foxy's. And you know, everybody, I don't want to say like, you know, everyone knows Melba's, everyone knows Red Rooster. So a couple more underground spots, Foxy's, one last spot, Corner Social.
Corner Social, yeah.
126th and Adam Clayton. Another good spot. The brunch there, the Parmesan fries, the truffle fries. To die for.
All right, Eric, what are you looking forward to? Because this is becoming a food
Yeah,
podcast.
he's just talking. It's becoming a food podcast.
But I'm excited.
We can keep going.
I'm excited for people to you know, when I meet someone who's from Chelsea, right, at 124th Street, and they're looking at an apartment, and they're like, "What's around here?" And I'm just like, "Yo, I'm glad you asked, because
There's no artichoke pizza up here.
There's no artichoke pizza, but listen, Lucille's ain't too bad. So yeah, I'm excited to have more of that, and also in the South Bronx. You know what I mean? Being able to head up there, see what the neighborhood's all about, be able to introduce it to people, show a different side of New York that's maybe a little grittier, a little bit more authentic, but then still be able to offer an awesome product in that same neighborhood as well. I think that's super fun.
All right, so we're talking what you're excited about and food. Let's keep it quick.
I just went food. I
would say
I
no,
just
because
took
we're
it
talking
there.
food
I
now.
just took
So
it there.
I would say for me personally, what I am excited about is that landlord that is in the process of taking that risk, going ahead and renovating that apartment, bringing an apartment to market, and really just going all out to go ahead and make it happen. We talked about one earlier this week that put $120,000 into a 3-bedroom, and
to
a
one
single
apartment.
unit, 3-bedroom, not
speaks to the
3
construction
bedrooms,
costs as
a
well, too.
3-bedroom apartment, and made this thing into something that, I mean, honestly, like I want it. Like my lease isn't up for another couple months, but like I kind of want it. You know what I mean? Like it is absolutely gorgeous. I am really excited about the guy who's bringing those, or the gal, to go ahead and bring those things to market and really compete with the big guys, with the developers, with the guys who have the accessibility to go ahead and build. I always root for the underdog. I don't care what it is. I mean, I'm a Patriots
He's
fan.
a Pats fan.
Yeah,
I was just about
I'm
to say.
a Patriots fan, so I got
20-year dynasty. You too, 20-year
so
dynasty.
we've been
root
underdogs for the past
underdog.
3
What?
years, all right? So
It's
just saying.
Coming from a Jets fan, that's
3
utter
years. That's been a
disrespect.
long time for me, bro.
That's
I haven't
utter
enjoyed
disrespect.
sports in a long time.
Bro,
Listen,
try your whole life.
when yeah, my whole life. Okay, let's name it out, right? I'm from the Bronx, and I like the Mets.
That's not fair, bro.
Tell me about it.
You like
Tell
the
me about
Patriots.
it.
It's already
And then
too
also
late.
at the same time, I had to pick something. I'm a Knicks fan. I had to pick something that wins. Something. Call me a front runner. Call me whatever. Since I was growing up, I had a Pats jersey. I had no name on the back. My parents couldn't afford that, so I had a Pats jersey, and it was gray. So you know it was out of season. It was that one alternate jersey that they had.
Oh, that's
so
the one at JCPenney.
yeah, exactly.
Same one.
Like $30 for the kids one. So it fit me, and it was what I still have it to this day. All right. So all in all, I'm excited for that underdog. I'm excited for the guy who, or the gal, or the company that's going ahead and saying, you know what? I don't care what's going on with the government. I don't care what's going on with everybody else. I am going ahead and I am putting, honestly, it all on the line to go ahead and make things happen. And, you know, anybody that's out there that's looking to take this risk of either becoming a real estate agent or becoming, you know, a landlord, or being a landlord in a different neighborhood that you've never even explored, just do it. Just do it. There's no if, and, or buts about it. But like, honestly, you need to go ahead and take that leap of faith. We all know that when everybody's scared, that's when you buy. You go ahead and you do things that are against the grain. So overall, I'm excited for that person. I'm excited for those things, see those things come to market. And if we're talking about food, I mean, shoot. Woo. I mean, I'm from New York, so I gotta.
Don't give me 10.
Don't give me 10 spots. Honestly, I'm from New York. I like food,
gatekeeping.
as
They're
you guys can
gatekeeping.
see. I like food. What's been my go-to lately? Honestly, I've been stopping in my old neighborhood. Patsy's. You can't go wrong with Patsy's. Can't go wrong with Patsy's, man. Patsy's got that great crust. They went up a little bit in price since the pandemic, but if you don't got the extra 50 cents, you shouldn't probably get in that pizza. Like you shouldn't be doing it. But Get a pie from there. Get that chicken parm slice from there. That's different. It's different. It's not dollar slices. So don't go there with a couple bucks. You're gonna be surprised at the end of it when you order a couple. Don't take your girl there with less than $30. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta get something great there. Patsy's, I would say, and shout out to my old deli. Honestly, like 120th and First. Honestly, they do such great food there. And honestly, what's the best thing about New York? The people. The staff that works there.
Remember the chicken you made us try over there?
The chicken that I made you try, bro. Yo, that
deli
to this day, we was drunk as hell, middle of the day, and you loved that shit. Just saying.
It was a good time.
It was, and the biscuit that comes with it.
It was good chicken.
Just saying, my guys over on 120th and First, they do a great job. And honestly, that's what I like about New York so much is that, it doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter what type of day you've had, it doesn't matter what you've come from, it doesn't matter, the story that brought you to New York. Most people that are in New York are not actually from New York. But whatever brought you here, honestly, the people are what make you stay. It's the stories, it's your experience, it's those things that make you stay. So that's what I'm excited about. That's the food spots that I love in Harlem, personally.
Yeah, and every broker is going to tell you I'm excited about doing deals. I'm excited about making more money. I'm excited to be bigger this year than I was last, and what next year has to bring. Unpopular take. What I'm very excited about is the social impact that these projects have. Something that people constantly forget. But any of these projects that are on market today from 421A, there is a 30% affordable component. So when I talk about a 448 unit project coming to the South Bronx with a basketball court, 2 swimming pools, sauna room, full-time doorman, tons of amenity space, we're talking about 115 units specifically dedicated to affordable housing.
That's amazing.
So
honestly,
this is solving the New York housing crisis, whether
that wasn't there
Albany
before.
understands that or not. So yes, I think that we do have a positive impact on the neighborhoods we do work. Every time that you do build a brand new building, you build housing for all income levels. So we'll leave off on that. We have a lot of great guests that we are bringing this season from the development community, the marketing community, the photography community, as well as attorneys that are a bit more versed than us on affordable housing, 421A, and the 2019 rent laws. And then lastly, brokerage CEOs to give us their perspective of being on that side of things, running the brokerage, dealing with the personalities in this room today.
That's a full-time job in itself.
But again, thank you so much for listening to us blab for the last, I don't know how many minutes.
Yeah. I'm not sure
who needs another pour.
Because
you guys at home, take another pour.
I'll take another pour. I'm not sure exactly where this is going to end up yet, but depending on where, comment, what are your thoughts, feedback, what do you want to hear us talk about, what are critiques you have for us as well too. Let us know your thoughts, and we'll try to put out somewhat regular episodes. Hopefully this isn't the last one. If you've listened this far, we appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon.